Hello and welcome back to the Fantasy Playmakers. What's up, guys? For today's video, I'm going to be going through some of my favorite late round tight end targets, and I really wanted to do this video because I think knowing the best late tight end options are very important, especially at the tight end position, just because you have your top guys at tight end. You have your Travis Kelce's, the George Kittles, Darren Waller. Those guys are probably going to be going in your first 3 rounds. Then you have guys like Kyle Pitts, TJ Hawkinson, Mark Andrews, probably going to be going maybe 5th through 7th. And then you have a couple guys going in the rounds after that. But then in most drafts, there's likely to be a run of guys right at the very end. Because if you're not getting one of those top guys, sometimes it's advantageous to just wait till the end of the draft and take a shot on a guy in the last couple of rounds. And so that's a strategy that I'm going to be using if I don't get one of those maybe top 6 guys. And so these are some of the guys that I'm going to be targeting in maybe the last couple rounds of drafts. If you guys watch the video and enjoy the content, please leave a like and subscribe. That really helps support the channel. And also let me know your thoughts down below. Do you agree with these late round tight end targets? Or also maybe let me know some of the guys that you're targeting late in drafts, and I'll make sure to get back to you. All right, before we get started, I do want to mention that there are some late round tight ends that I think are kind of popular recently. Guys like Adam Troutman and Cole Kmet, guys like that. And I do like both those players, and I think they're going to have solid careers as tight ends, but I'm not looking at them as late round targets for redraft just because you really don't see guys with super low tight end production jump up in 1 year and become top 12 tight ends. So I think those are guys that should be looked at more for dynasty as opposed to redraft this year. So just a heads up, guys like that likely aren't going to be on this list. I'm looking for guys that at least have shown a little bit of prior success at the tight end position. And one more thing, I just want to mention that all of the guys I'm going to talk about are currently going as tight end 15 or later. So these are all guys that you could realistically get in the last couple rounds of your drafts. All right, first up, I have Anthony Ferguson from the Titans, who right now is lined up to be the number 1 tight end on that team. And the Titans, I've talked about this in a lot of videos, that number 2 role as the pass catcher is totally up in the air. It was Corey Davis last year, but you also had Jonnu Smith was the starting tight end, and then receiver Adam Humphries. All those guys are gone. So that number 2 role is wide open this year. And Jonnu Smith vacates 65 targets at the tight end position. So that's a lot of room for kind of Anthony Ferguson to work his way in there and eat into some of those touches. And in 2020, Ferguson saw 53 targets. So he was close to Jonnu Smith's target number, but he just did not have the same touchdown upside that Jonnu Smith had last year. So I think Ferguson has a legitimate chance to pick up around 30 of those vacated targets. And so if he's able to pick up those targets, now he's the number 1 red zone tight end on that team, where before it was Jonnu Smith, who had 9 touchdowns in 2020. He's now operating in an efficient, high-scoring offense as the number 1 tight end. So I think he's a guy that has a lot of potential here late in the draft. Next up, we've got Gerald Everett, who left the Rams this offseason in free agency and signed with the Seahawks on a 1-year deal. And just like Anthony Ferguson, he has the opportunity to step in and be the number 1 tight end on the Seahawks offense. On the Rams, he was splitting time with Tyler Higbee, and it really kind of prevented both guys from truly breaking out as a fantasy-relevant tight end. And this isn't about Gerald Everett, but I'm also feeling pretty good about Tyler Higbee this year on the Rams. But that's not what we're here to talk about because he's going much earlier than Gerald Everett. I really think Everett's athleticism is what makes me optimistic about his potential this year. Coming out of college, Everett was 89th percentile in 40-yard dash, 75th percentile in speed score, 94th percentile in burst score, 81st in agility score, and 87th in catch radius. So across the board, he is just a very capable athlete, and that is definitely something you want to look for when you're projecting those top tier tight ends. They generally have to have a pretty solid athletic base to succeed in the NFL. And so Gerald Everett definitely has that athleticism, and he's also going to be a part of a high scoring offense. And I really think could break out this year if given the opportunity, especially with how late he's going. Now we've got Jared Cook up next, and this is just not a flashy pick at all. I'd say this was actually a pretty boring pick, but I would not be surprised if Jared Cook finishes as a top 10 tight end in 2021. When you look back in previous years, he was number 6 in points per game in 2018, and then number 8 in points per game in 2019. He fell off in 2020, finished as number 19 in points per game, but I think that can be attributed to the poor quarterback play between Brees and Hill. Brees, late in his career, wasn't pushing the ball down the field the same way he was in his prime, and then Taysom Hill didn't play badly, but he's not a guy who's going to support his receivers. He's a guy that's going to get it done on the ground and just a little bit in the air. So he's not a guy that you really want for your fantasy receiving options. But later in his career, Jared Cook has really emerged as a touchdown threat. He has 16 total touchdowns in the last 2 years. The Saints definitely used him well in that red zone role. But now he's signed with the Chargers this offseason. You have Hunter Henry gone. So Jared Cook has a pretty solid shot at being the number 1. And he's going into a high-powered Chargers passing offense. But despite the success they had in the passing game last year, there's not a surplus of top-tier weapons on this team. Like, this isn't a Buccaneers or a Chiefs roster where you have a ton of top guys. This is a team with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams as the top pass catchers. You also have Austin Eckler, but in terms of wide receivers and tight ends, I think Jared Cook has a legit shot to come in and be the number 3 pass catcher in that offense, and I think he definitely has the potential to be a big-time red zone threat on this Chargers offense. All right, the final guy I'm going to be talking about today is going to be Zach Ertz, and I mean, Zach Ertz has just everything up in the air right now. We really have no idea what's going on with him, but he's a guy that's just going at the very bottom of drafts. And so I just want to point out how successful Zach Ertz has been in his career as a fantasy tight end. In 2017, he was number 3 in points per game. Then he was number 2 in points per game in 2018. And then number 5 in points per game in 2019. And like all you guys know, 2020 was just an absolute nightmare for Zach Ertz owners. If you drafted Zach Ertz, it was likely as a top 4 tight end. And I mean, he just totally underperformed. You didn't get any return on that investment. And even though Zach Ertz hasn't been traded yet, I just don't think you're going to find a tight end with more talent this late in the draft. I mean, this is a guy who's proven in the last couple of years that he can be a top tier fantasy tight end. And so I'm not willing to just throw that away. I don't think he's washed. I still think he has a lot of juice left in the tank. And so I really think you could be drafting a potential top 5 tight end at the very end of drafts if Zach Ertz lands in a favorable spot. I think one of the better options for him would be the Colts. You reunite him with Carson Wentz, and that's also an offense with not a ton of weapons, so we could be one of the top options on that team, but we really have to just wait and see what happens with Zach Ertz. But if I was drafting now, I would be totally willing to go out and throw a dart at Zach Ertz late in the draft. That's going to wrap up today's video. Those are the 4 guys I wanted to talk about. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. Once again, if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. And also let me know your thoughts down below. I'll make sure to respond and get back to you. But once again, thank you guys so much. I'll see you guys tomorrow.